sit there and think sometimes.
Yeah.
So
All right.
I got thoughts.
Good. That's what we need. So welcome back to the Beehive Biker Podcast, episode 15, I think. Maybe.
I'm going to trust you on that one, Jeremy.
Oof. Probably 14, actually.
Okay.
I think it's 15 if you include like the intro episode. But today I'm joined by Nate Kartchner. For those of you who don't know, I'm sure I've mentioned it. I'm in the National Guard here in Utah, and Nate here is our surgeon for the brigade, right?
Yep.
And what's funny enough, I feel like I know anybody in my life that rides motorcycles. And then last drill, you came up to me and you're like, hey, I'm really enjoying your podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, you sent it out to the group, and I was like, oh, another podcast about motorcycles. I'll check this out because I've been riding for a while. And I've really dug it, man. You do a good job.
Thank you.
Some interesting conversations. It's been cool.
Well, it just made me laugh because I'm like, how did I not know that you rode?
Yeah. It's weird how that works out. Sometimes I'm an undersharer of information for sure. I keep my cards close.
You appreciate your privacy.
I do for sure. But yeah, I've been riding for a while. I'm 43, and I think I got my first motorcycle when I was 20s something.
Okay.
It's a Honda CB 650, which is just like, it's a 1980 bike, just classic do-it-all motorcycle. And then I had a buddy who got me into dirt bikes. I moved into his house. He had an old Triumph, which was not a dirt bike, but he was also into dirt bikes, like two-stroke KTMs. Mm-hmm. And so I got another Honda XR 650, which is like a desert racing bike,
right? Street
legal. And then I got a KTM 500 two-stroke, which was an amazing motorcycle. And then I sold basically everything I owned because I went to medical school, and you just got to focus on that one thing. And then I got done with medical school, and in residency, I had like a 20-minute drive along the freeway to get to work. And this was in Nebraska, and I bought a motorcycle because I'm like, if I've got to drive anywhere,
might as well have fun.
I might as well be on a motorcycle. And it was a Bandit 1200 Suzuki Bandit.
I was gonna say, I was like, I don't think I know that one.
Yeah, it's an older bike. It's like a half fairinged touring bike, basically. But
gotcha.
It was a great bike. I really dug it. And when you're in residency, you work a lot of weird hours and get sleep deprived. And everybody would give me a hard time because I was a doctor doing emergency medicine residency.
Riding a motorcycle.
And I'm riding a motorcycle. They're like, don't you see, all the accidents that come in? I'm like, well, yeah. Anyway.
Well, I'm sure I don't know. People always bring that up. And then I think, well, I mean, you obviously just see just as many people coming from car crashes and stuff like that.
More people coming from car crashes. Now, I'm not going to lie to anybody and say that motorcycles aren't more dangerous than cars. They're far more dangerous than cars, right? But you can die or get injured doing anything. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen healthy young people slip on ice, hit their head, and then they're dead. I've seen this healthy person eat steak and choked on it, died.
Right. I mean,
so you never know.
You kind of pick your poison.
Yeah, exactly. You also can't bubble wrap your life. You got to do things that you find enjoyable. And even if it is more dangerous than other people are willing to accept, it's all about your individual risk tolerance. And if it brings you happiness, then I fully support your decision to make more dangerous decisions than the rest of the population, because I'm right there with you. So.
Yeah, it's funny you say that you sold your bikes getting into med school to like focus on that, because my brother, he has similar, ideas. Yeah. He went into pharmacy school, and he pretty much sold his bike right off. And I'm like, man, I really hope that he gets a bike when he gets done, because I love riding with my brother. I feel like we didn't even go as much when we both had bikes, because he had a 20, I think his was a 17 Yamaha MT-09, and I had a 2015 or 2016 FZ-09. So basically the same bike, just some different body styling. Yeah. And I had fun going out with him. So I'm like, oh man, I hope when you're done with school, like get into the bike again. Yeah.
Well, if he's smart and lucky, then he will. So. It was a necessity, I just couldn't afford. Bikes are luxury items, Yeah, there are places in the world that people ride motorcycles all the time, and put their family on a motorcycle to get places, but that's not America, which is, it's fine. But if the other cool thing about motorcycles is there are luxury items that you can get into for $4,000 for a great used motorcycle. So they're not. I mean, I was in residency with a bunch of children, and I still could afford to put down. I think I bought that bike for $4,000, that Suzuki Bandit. So you can get into a nice bike that's reliable for not much money. So.
Right, and especially if you're in some location that you can ride it a lot more. Like, what's Nebraska's weather climate like for the most part?
It's similar to here. You'll get ice storms in the winter, so it's the same. October through April, you're probably not riding at all.
Oh, really?
So it's kind of like Utah.
Yeah, because when I lived in Arkansas and Missouri, I feel like the season was a lot longer, or at least people were willing to go a lot deeper into the fall.
Yeah.
Probably because, one, it's probably, I don't feel like it got as cold, and then the snow wasn't coming. And
back then, I couldn't afford as nice cold weather gear for motorcycles,
right?
And so that makes a difference too. Now I got the whole heated gear set up.
Oh, you're set up.
Gloves, and I got heated pants, man. The only thing I haven't got is heated socks.
Oh, wow!
I've never felt the need. My feet always stay warm enough.
What kind of boots are you rocking?
So I have a couple different riding boots. I have some CD adventure touring boots. They're just some dirt bike boots, basically.
Are they insulated or?
No, they're just
enough padding.
You see on motocross, it's basically motocross boots.
Gotcha.
They come up to your calf. They're like all leather. They're thick to take a beating from off-road riding. Mm-hmm. So they're super warm and waterproof. So. That if it's bad weather, I'll wear those. I've got all the safety gear. So even though I ride, I'm just super conscious of you can mitigate the risk pretty effectively. Right. I kind of envy. I've had a big V-twin, American V-twin. I had a Victory. I'm blanking on the model, but a big bagger, one of Victory's big baggers, and it felt cool. And I'd sit on it and I'd feel cool. And now I ride in a one-piece protective suit it's sitting up there because I wrote in here. It's got like safety yellow on the arms, and I've got this dorky looking helmet that's full face coverage. And I don't look as cool, but I feel a lot safer.
Well, I'm sure you look cool depending on
I'm
sure
a
lot of people. Oh, really? I'm sure that dorky. Some adventure bike riders look at guys on Harleys and they're like, "Wow, look at those
dude." Some other 50-year-old dentist thinks I look cool.
Well, I'm sure, but when they look at people like riding Harleys and they got their leather everywhere and maybe not wearing a helmet, like, oh, he thinks he's so cool,
and he is. He's less safe.
You heard it here first.
But he looks cooler.
Real cool.
He looks more cool. I'll walk into Walmart. I walked into Walmart in my motorcycle getup, and I feel like everybody's looking at me odd, like, what's this guy about?
Did you keep your helmet on?
No, I took my helmet off. It's got the modular face.
Oh, okay.
So it can look even dorkier.
Hey, mine does that.
Yeah.
I only open it up to put it on, and then I close it.
Yeah. You should mitigate risk wherever you can, I think. But sometimes, I'll ride to pick up the mail without my helmet because it's in a rural area and it feels good to have the wind in my hair. So I get it. I get to each their own.
Yeah. When I first started riding, I would always ride full gear, and I do now. Especially I have a kid and a wife and people that depend on me. Yeah. But when I first started riding, I was like, who would ever not ride without a helmet? Like, how stupid can you be? And I'd see people ride by without, just wearing their bandana or if one I still stick to being stupid is if you're riding with flip-flops on. I see people riding with flip-flops. I'm like, you're so stupid. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to go put on some shoes. And that's just like the minimum.
I would just worry about them falling off.
Yeah. There's a lot of concern for the flip-flop rat. I don't know. I lived in Cambodia on a mission for my church, and there's a lot of flip-flop motorcycle riders there. Oh, yeah. So, that's why I say to each their own. And if you come to the ER after your motorcycle accident, I'll try to put you back together without judging you too harshly. I'll judge you a little bit. So,
yeah. Well, I don't know. I think eventually, I don't even know the first time I rode without a helmet, but I was like, wow, this is amazing.
The wind in your hair feels
so good.
Yeah.
So I don't judge people riding without a helmet. Yeah. I ride with a helmet like 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Like I wear my leather jacket 99, 80% of the time, unless I'm like really close riding.
Yeah.
Like I'll be riding home from work occasionally, and I take the interstate home, I-15, all the way back. And I'm like, if I crashed at 80 miles an hour, I'm toast.
Yeah, man.
So
yeah, it's all about risk mitigation. For example, this one time I took my wife down to Zion. I live really close to Zion National Park. And we got into the park, and then we kind of stashed our helmet and our heavy riding gear in the trees. And then we rode slowly through the park with our sleeves out, with the wind in our hair, and it felt amazing.
Did you cook?
It was super hot, so it was nicer to have all the gear off. And it was safer than doing that on the freeway, right? But still risky, it's risk benefit. So yeah, I'm kind of a risk taker, so I don't mind taking some risk. I heard Tom Cruise do some video where he was talking about one of his stunts, and he's like, I'm trying to remember exactly what he says, something to the effect of, don't be careful, be competent. So, my advice to people is wear the safety gear every time you can. Take a safety course.
Yeah.
Take an instructional course. Get some education. Get some experience from a professional. That's where you'll really gain safety, is being a competent rider.
So for those who haven't visited Zion's, what's the riding scene like there?
It's incredible. They have one of the most gorgeous riding roads that you could be on. They have a road that travels east-west through the lower canyon, and it will travel, it's super pretty. The whole canyon's pretty. But you get onto the east side of the park, and you go through the tunnel that goes over to the east side of the park. And you go through this mile-long tunnel with windows that open out. And you're in a tunnel, so you can rev your engine and hear the engine.
That's the best.
The exhaust reverberate off the tunnel walls, and
I know you don't get to hear
amazing.
that as often. We're riding a Euro bike. You don't get to hear that exhaust. It's so quiet.
I bought a new bike that has an amazing sounding exhaust. So
you're gonna have to show it to me.
Yeah.
What bike are you on now?
So I bought a Ducati Multistrada. It's been 3 weeks.
Did you keep your other bikes, or did you trade one in for this?
No. So I guess going back to what bikes I've had, I had that Bandit, but I sold that, and I bought a Triumph Thruxton, which is kind of like the Triumph's Classics looking bikes, but it's got drop handlebars. And I discovered that that's really uncomfortable to ride on the freeway because of all the wind.
Yeah. I didn't think that I would be a windshield or fairing guy.
Yeah.
But once you ride with one, you're like, I can't not have one.
Yeah. I sold that, and I bought this Norden 901. It's an adventure bike. It's got a big 21-inch wheel. It does amazing off-road, and it's reasonable on the road. But then I saw this BMW, they have the weirdest naming convention, but it's like R1100S Boxster Cup replica. And it's like this sporty-looking touring motorcycle with a 19 or a 17-inch front wheel, which made a huge difference on-road handling. And it was a 20-year-old bike, but it looked gorgeous. It had these yellow wheels, had these yellow half fairing, just super pretty bike. And I rode that for a couple of years, but I just burned out the clutch riding it 2 months ago.
Oh, no.
And so I was like, man. And it's a $4,000 bike. And all of that BMW stuff is super expensive to repair, and it was going to be $2,000. I'm not much of a mechanic. I can do basic things, but to get to this clutch and this BMW Boxster engine with a shaft drive, it's just a big repair. And the part itself is like $1,000. So I sold the bike to somebody who thought he could fix it up, and then I had to find a better street-capable bike. And then I ended up selling all my bikes and basically have this Ducati now.
Was that the plan originally?
It just kind of happens. Sometimes stuff spontaneously happens. Dude, it's a 2003, but it's brand new, and it was sitting on the dealer's lot for, it's almost 2025 now, right?
Wait, what year did you say it was?
2023.
23. Oh, okay.
Sorry, I misspoke.
I thought you said 2003, and I was like, wow, that's old. Yeah.
So like 18 months.
Okay.
But they wanted it gone. And so
it was new stock.
It was $7,000 off. And so I was like, oh, man, that's a really good deal.
Yeah.
And I was looking for a new touring bike. I thought I wanted a shaft drive because I was getting tired of chain maintenance. And this one's got a chain, but I rode it, and it is super exhilarating, and I loved it. And I thought, man, this is the bike. Let's go.
Speaking of exhilarating, do you have a story to share?
No, we were talking earlier. I had a Suzuki Hayabusa at one point. I had to sell it because I needed to pay some of my employees their paycheck. So, but I had the Suzuki Hayabusa for a couple of years. Are you familiar with the Hayabusa?
Yeah.
So it was the fastest production motorcycle of all time, and it's what got the motorcycle manufacturers to have this gentleman's agreement of limiting it. Their production motorcycles to 300 kilometers an hour, which is like, I don't know, what is that, 180 something miles
well,
per hour?
100 is 60, right? Yeah, so 180.
Don't ask me to do math.
I think it's something like that.
It's fast. So I had this Hayabusa, and I drove it home from where I bought it along this deserted road. And on my ride home, I got going really, really fast. I mean, I'm not top speed for that motorcycle, but really fast. And I haven't reached the statute of limitations yet, so I won't tell you how fast.
What's the statute of limitations on something like that?
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
But I was going really fast. I probably should have admitted some things I've admitted on the podcast.
And it was exhilarating. But I'm kind of glad I sold that bike because even as risk tolerant as I am, I'm not willing to go that fast on public roads again.
Yeah, it's hard not to want to go fast when you have bikes that can accomplish it.
Dude, I was riding just to pick up some groceries this morning, and I'm thinking to myself, it is so hard not to break the law on a motorcycle. You have to be like consciously thinking, go the speed limit, change lanes appropriately. It's
don't split.
Yeah, exactly. But that's part of why they're so enjoyable at the same time. But yeah, this Ducati will go really fast too. And I've taken it as fast as appropriate for the situation. Which may be close to its top speed. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
But you did get a ticket on it.
Yeah, dude. The day after that's the story. Yeah. The day after I bought it, I got a ticket because I was driving it to Blanding. So I bought it in Salt Lake at the Eurosports, Harrison's Eurosports down in Sandy.
Yeah, I think I've driven past it because they've got like shop. BMW, Ducati,
BMW, Triumph, Ducati.
Yeah, I think I've been past it. Meant to go there. How's the staff there? Is that a pretty good place to shop?
Yeah. So I bought that Triumph there, and I bought this Ducati there, and I mean they're selling luxury motorcycles. They're not as expensive as Harley Davidson new motorcycles, but they're still pretty expensive.
They add up when you get all those like parts and accessories on. They like those BMWs. They're not much cheaper.
Yeah, and if it wasn't such a great deal, I probably wouldn't have bought it, but it was a really good deal. And I think there's another one there right now because they have a lot of 2023 inventory that they haven't sold. So if anybody out there is interested, I think there's another white Multistrada that's like $7,000 off. Sure, yeah, I wouldn't mind. It'd be awesome. It's an incredible bike.
I've mentioned it several times. Like I kind of want to get an adventure bike as a second bike. Yeah. So I have like my street bike and then going off-roading and whatnot. What are some things that people should be conscious of when considering an adventure bike that they might not think about beforehand?
They are heavy. And so
top heavy?
Well, I mean, just heavy, period. Even like, so that Husqvarna that I had is incredible off-road. But if you drop it, it is heavy to pick up. And I was in the sand once, and I just laid this Ducati over slowly in the sand, didn't break anything. But just picking it up, like, I'm a pretty fit dude. It was a struggle to pick up this bike. It's 100 pounds more than that Husqvarna is, and it is heavy. And you can off-road it, but if you drop something and break a fairing, then it's expensive to fix. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, you can off-road these adventure bikes, but I wouldn't recommend doing anything hard because of those reasons. If you drop it, it's expensive and they're heavy to pick up.
Do you think there's like a difference in the type of off-roading that people do on these versus like an actual dirt bike?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So
is this like more dirt trails, like
this is like gravel dirt roads. But I think if you think cars, it's like a nice SUV, like a Porsche Cayenne. That's their SUV, right?
I'm not a Porsche guy, so I wouldn't know. That's above my price range.
You could take it on Jeep trails in Moab, but if you roll it, it's going to be an expensive repair. And it's probably just going to go get you Starbucks coffee. And
I think that's
it's not going to spend a lot of time off road.
I think that's the average joke for most adventure riders, that the adventure is going to get coffee or something like that.
And I've taken this on dirt roads and it does fine, but one of my other bikes is a Suzuki DRZ 400, and that's an off-road. That's basically a dirt bike. It's a little bit heavier and it can do roads a little bit better. But if you want to do hard dirt roads, then take a KTM 690. Take a DRZ 400, 650. Those some people call them dual sport bikes. They're lighter. Basically, they're lighter and they're harder to break when you drop them.
Yeah, because that's what I learned on learned street riding was a DR 650.
Yeah, which is a sweet bike. You talk about do-it-all starter bikes for inexpensive. That is a great one to go with because it can do dirt roads. It can do on roads. It's a good bike.
How is the cruising, like long distance touring on a bike like yours?
I've ridden a Victory Vision. That's the one I remember. It was the big American V twin. I had to sell that too because I needed to make payroll. I had a company that I started, and we had times where we did better and times we did worse. And so sometimes I had to sell.
Sometimes you had to buy
motorcycles. Yeah, basically. So it's not as comfortable as that Victory Vision. That Vision was incredible. It's got this adjustable windshield. You don't have foot pegs. You have platforms.
Yeah, like the floorboards.
Blew my mind. Yeah. My wife loved riding on the back of that Victory Vision because it's like a love seat in the back. It's like a big lazy boy. And the other thing that she loved is I couldn't go very fast on it.
Yeah,
which is the downside of the Victory Vision. Right?
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah. And so a lot of these adventure bikes, they are probably slightly less comfortable on the road, but just barely. I wanted a bike that was basically the Honda Goldwing that I could take on some gravel roads and the occasional 2-track, and then that's what these bikes are. You could easily do 1,000 miles a day in these and be just fine. And then also go on dirt roads.
Is the seat pretty comfortable on its own, or is it something that you can get aftermarket, like better seats? Because that's like a big thing with the touring bikes, or like a big twin. Or
I'm not going to claim to be an expert on it, but I've always felt like there's perfectly comfortable seats, and I've never wanted to change the seat. I did order one of those covers that let wind underneath your bum.
Gotcha.
Because and I think it's a product of this particular engine. It's a V4 engine, and so you've got 2 cylinders right under your butt, and it gets really hot. And so I wanted to get one of these cool mesh covers to see if it makes it less hot. But it's getting cold now outside, so it's less of an issue.
It's nice to have that heated,
so it's
heated
nice
seat
to have the heated seat that's always on. But I bought this cool mesh cover, and I'm going to try it and see. But I felt like they've been great without any additional seats. So
yeah, I don't know. Like a full seat for my bike is, you're pushing $600 for a new seat.
Wow.
So I'm tempted. There's another podcast called the 5 Dirty Bikers. They're sponsored by Wild Ass Seats.
Oh yeah.
And they're basically like a cushion that's fitted for all. They have a couple different shapes and whatever. And I kind of want to get one of theirs. They're a lot more affordable. I think they have some that range from like $100 to $200.
Oh wow,
and
that is a good deal.
And they just kind of like strap onto the existing seat.
It's just a cushion that straps on.
It hooks onto it, so it's removed. If you're not feeling it, or you whatever, you take it off. Or
makes a lot of sense.
And I think that they are breathable, like how you mentioned.
I've seen people put sheep skins. Sheep
skins.
Let me enunciate that better. Sheep skins on seats, and they say that makes a difference. So I don't know. I think that's an adventure bike thing,
sheep skins.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of when I've seen some really bougie bikes where they put like the false fur on
it's
all
kind
over
of
the
like
seat.
that. I think it's like that. And that's supposed to make them comfortable. But like I said, other than this one being too hot sometimes, I've never had an issue with it. And I thought they were all super comfortable. So, well, the other cool thing is you can stand up on an adventure bike.
Right.
And
it's kind of more of the rider's triangle is more seat, like your legs are directly down
Yeah. Well, if you're off road, you want to be standing up for better control, and so they design it so you can stand up and go off road. So, and I'll be going 80 down the freeway, and it's been a couple hours, and my legs are getting stiff, and I'll stand up for 5 minutes.
That sounds nice,
something.
actually.
It's kind of cool too. It's an interesting, because you can't see your motorcycle anymore, so you're just standing there, and it feels like you're just flying down the road. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, that does sound nice, actually, because I don't ever really stand on mine because it's forward controls, right. So the floorboards are so far forward. But occasionally I'll like stand up to get, I was coming into Brigham, and they have a railroad that crosses Forest Street, and so I was coming up on it, and I was trying to see like it's the road, like because it was covered by a train. I'm like, how close is it to passing? Do I wait in line or do I go the long way? You know. So I stood up and I was like, yeah, this is not super comfortable.
Awkward. Yeah.
Just because I'm almost locking my knees to stand up because it's so far forward. But
it's just a different kind of bike, right? Different purpose.
Right.
But looks way cooler, let's be honest.
Speaking of riding position, one thing I've always been not concerned with, but curious about, maybe if I got some more experience riding adventure bikes, is the seat height and being able to, flat foot or tiptoe. Like, how is that on most? Because I know they typically have a higher seat height.
Yeah. But that's a really important concern for a lot of people. It's higher. I mean, I wish I could tell you. My inseam is 30 inches, and I can get both toes down on this bike, but I don't know how high the seat is. I don't know. I've just always felt comfortable enough just being able to have one foot down. It's probably starts from riding dirt bikes. All of those seat heights are super tall. It's just, I don't know any better, I guess. I know with that Victory Vision, putting both feet down felt super stable. Even though it was an 800-pound bike or whatever it weighs, I mean, it felt super stable and controllable. I never felt like I was going to tip it over or anything. So
yeah, that's what I like about my Harley. Like, it's lower to the ground. I mean, even with the bike I had before, the Honda Fury, like that one was super low to the ground. I felt like I was just like squat down into it. Yeah.
That's a big consideration. It's all pluses and minuses, give and take. They make lowering kits if you're really worried about that. There's some suspensions now, like Harley Davidson in their, what's their adventure bike called?
The Pan America.
They were the first ones to develop that automatic lowering suspension system.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, that adaptive ride height, because I really want to try out one of theirs. I don't think I'd be able. I don't know if I could afford one of those and the bike I have.
Yeah, spendy.
I think starting they're like, I don't know, is it 18 grand? It's something like that.
That sounds right. I mean, they're basically the same as the BMWs and the Ducatis.
Yeah. And I think they're a little more affordable than theirs, because I think the BMWs, those ones are around like 20.
Yeah,
I thought
they're all pricey, man.
Yeah. Well, because that's the thing is, like, if I did get another bike or have an adventure bike, I'd want it as a second bike.
Yeah.
And if I was gonna spend 20 grand on a new bike, I'd want to like get a newer version of what I have.
Yeah.
Either a road glide or a street glide, and then have a less expensive. Like, one I've looked at is the Tenere 700.
Yeah.
Like, it's lighter. It's not quite as large as because what engine size is that Ducati you have, the multi-stroke?
It's 11 or it's 10 something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not nearly as large, and I think also the Tenere 700, I could be completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's either a similar or the exact same engine that they have in the MT-07.
Yeah, I think so.
Which would make it similar to what I've ridden with the MT-09.
I rode with a guy who had a T7, and it was an awesome bike. It's super capable. It's way lighter than even that Husqvarna that I had. That Husqvarna was a 901, so it was about 900 cc's, like 450 pounds. And I don't know the exact weight of the Tenere, but it was lighter. And it all depends on what you want to do with it. Do you want to spend 80% of your time off road? Then look into like a DRZ 400, or I think the Husqvarna 701 is a super compelling bike as far as, because off-road weight is everything, because you're going to drop it and if you're going to have to pick it up.
Yeah.
So, but the T7 gets great reviews, and I've heard awesome things about it. And it's like 10 grand. new.
Yeah.
It's not that expensive.
Yeah, it's like 8 or 10.
Yeah.
And you can probably find a new old stock.
Oh, yeah.
For even less.
I'm sure there's lots of used deals out there.
And then if you want it, because I think the other nice thing about the Tenere, and I think a couple other brands have similar things, is that they have the Tenere at 700 cc's, and then they have I can't remember what the other model is, but Yamaha is like a 1100 or 1200.
They've got a 1200, a Tenere 1200.
Yeah, is it Tenere as well? I couldn't remember if they had a different name.
I think it's called the Super Tenere.
Oh, that might be it.
Yeah.
But
I have a hard time keeping track of all these like specific details.
I'm really good at like the Harley Davidson models.
But you branch
because
out
I'm hyper fixated on it.
Yeah.
But when it comes to other models, like I can point out like, oh, I feel like styling wise, each brand kind of has their own look. So I can be like, oh, that's a Honda or that's a Yamaha, Suzuki, whatever. But when it comes to like specific models, I'd have to have already done like focused research on some of them to know what they were.
You know, Honda makes it like a CRF 300, which is kind of underpowered, but it's a lot lighter. And I, like I said, I don't know the exact weights, but it's a little lighter than the T7. That's kind of a compelling bike. People ride that around the world, kind of a bike. And you're not going 100 miles an hour down the freeway on it, but it can do 70 comfortably. But if you're off-road most of the time, then it's kind of a cool bike.
What's the control like? Do you feel like you have so much power that you're having to get more experience with your controls to weather off-roading, or is it pretty intuitive?
Yeah, I feel like the adventure bikes have great control on-road and off-road. The turning radius is super small, and their handlebars are usually nice and wide, and so you have good control. And just the riding triangle and being able to stand up, all that stuff makes it really controllable.
So does standing up give you the ability to turn tighter, or is that just like a maneuverability while moving forward?
Well, I don't consider myself like a professional rider. But
hey, but you know more than I do. So
I'll bet sitting down, because every time I see the police rodeo riders, they're all sitting down. So I'll bet sitting down's the way to go. But, it's just nice to be able to stand up so you can see around you. You just get your body positioned to absorb bumps and things. But yeah, I think the controllability of them is excellent. The thing that I wanted when I was looking for another bike was I wanted to travel from A to B, and if I want to go on a dirt road, I can, but just do it super comfortably. So I wanted cruise control. I wanted heated grips, heated seats. I wanted an adjustable windshield. This is a manually adjustable, and then the other thing that was really important to me is I wanted it to be exciting. I wanted to have that kind of that Hayabusa feel to it. And so when I turned my wrist, I wanted to feel that in my gut, which this bike has delivered. But most bikes are way more powerful than I can safely control, and it delivers on all accounts. So it's great on road, and it's reasonable off road.
Yeah, I'd be interested to go try and test drive some of these.
Yeah.
How did you kind of decide on the Ducati?
It was the most exciting to ride.
What other ones had you been?
So first I wanted a shaft drive. So I tried BMWs. They had the 1250, and then they just came out with the 1300. And the 1300 actually has so much torque. It has similar off the line kind of acceleration feeling to this Ducati. It probably a little bit more just because the torque is more. Mm-hmm. And I tried Triumph's adventure bike, the Tiger 1200.
Yeah, that one's pretty popular, isn't it, in the ADV scene?
Yeah, and I mean, it was cool, and it had shaft drive, which is kind of nice, not having to deal with chain maintenance. Does your Harley have a belt?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any maintenance to that? You don't
probably.
I mean,
I drop it off at Tucker Speed and have them work on it.
That's what
I'm not like a mechanic.
Yeah.
I want to be better.
Just ride.
But like I'm one thing at a time, because I just got the tires redone.
Oh yeah.
And then while it was there, they're like, "Hey, you really ought to get your rear brake replaced," and so I got the pads switched out.
Yeah.
And then they said, also your transmission fluid is leaking because of the way it's designed. The pipes hang off the bottom of the transmission cover.
Oh.
And so it's just a bad design. And there's nothing you can really do about it besides spending a lot of money on pipes and switching it to something that brackets differently.
Oh,
and
gotcha.
So I'm like, man, that's a lot of effort. Yeah. And so I'm like, I'll deal with that when I have money. You know, I just do the cheap fix until I can get it.
Sometimes people get into motorcycles because they're like, oh man, the gas mileage is so much better. I'll save so much money. I'm like, whoa. Yeah. You have to replace your tires every, 5,000 miles. You're probably replacing tires as opposed to 50,000 with cars.
Yeah. Or if you're me and you just ride on 12-year-old tires.
Yeah. You're doing a chain and sprocket every 10 to 20,000 miles if you have a chain. So it's funny because those costs add up, it feels like.
Well, and I think the other thing that a lot of people don't think about is when you get into riding, a lot of people buy a smaller bike because they're worried about control.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second they get it, they realize that they can already control this and they want something bigger.
Yeah.
So there's that. You're gonna be selling off a bike that you might not get whatever you paid for it on.
Right.
You're gonna be buying a probably more expensive bike.
Yeah.
And then once you finally feel like you got the bike you want, you're like, well, I want this to fit me comfortably. So I'm gonna get different bars.
So now you gotta modify your bike. Yeah.
I'm gonna get different bars. I want it to sound nice, so I get a different exhaust. And
God, most hobbies for American men are like that, though, right? I mean,
that's the issue I have is I have too many hobbies.
Yeah. You reach a point where you're like, all right, I got to limit the number of hobbies and focuses that I have because just you accumulate things and you stop accumulating experiences. And the real value is in accumulating experiences. But motorcycles help you have a lot of really cool experiences. So I think they're worth it.
I mean, at least on the tour bike side of things, I feel like you meet a lot of cool people.
Yeah.
Like when you go out with your bike, is that a similar vibe? Like you run into ADV people and you're like, hey, same.
I don't ride my motorcycle to meet people.
You're just like, I'm out to get away from people.
I ride to be in my own head and to have my own experience. It's funny. So I'll tell you why I got into motorcycle. I got into motorcycles really heavily like 4 years ago because I started commuting from Utah to Nebraska by car. And I'd go once a month to this place in this hospital in Nebraska to work. And I would just hit I-80 and I had a Toyota Sienna minivan, which is an awesome car for just racking up miles. It has it has lane keep assist and cruise control. And it's great. You can eat and drink while you're driving, which you can't do on a motorcycle.
Right.
So I'd go to Nebraska, and then one summer I bought that BMW, and I'm like, I bet I could take this BMW out to Nebraska, and it's almost 1,000 miles. And I took it through Colorado, which has amazing roads through the mountains of Colorado.
You're making that in one trip?
I'd do it over 2 days.
Oh, okay.
I would start at noon. I'd go somewhere and sleep. I'd camp by my bike, which was another super enjoyable part of it. And then I would finish the next day to be to work at whatever noon. But I drove through Colorado, and it was amazing, absolutely stunning. And it was a way more enjoyable way to get to work where I had to be anyway. I had to go on this trip anyway. And when I rode a motorcycle, I enjoyed it as opposed to just getting on I-80 in my minivan and setting the cruise control and then showing up 10 hours later, And so then I was like, how do I ride my motorcycle more to work?
Got to find the excuses.
And well, that's what it became. I'm like, I got to drive to work anyway. So how do I ride my motorcycle? And it's actually fun to drive there. And so that's when I started to get all of the safety gear and the heated gear and just like, all right, what kind of kit can I get to get me to do this drive I have to do anyway comfortably? And so that's when I really got into adventure touring motorcycles. And it's been awesome. But I don't call up my buddies and say, hey, let's
go for a ride.
Let's commute to this hospital in Nebraska with me. It's just me driving by myself.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a pretty social thing for me, but also I do appreciate being out by myself.
Yeah.
Like any chance I'm like, my wife will be like, oh, I need something from the store. Don't worry. I got it. I got bags.
I think we're getting low on milk, honey.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a trip.
Yeah,
I've done that.
And it's not even that far of a trip. Like it's, 5-10 minutes down the road and back. But
well, that's just an example of why they're so cool. You just, any opportunity to jump on 2 wheels and ride is, you take it. It's awesome. I will go on there's this thing in adventure riding called backcountry discovery routes. Have you heard of that at all? So it's this whole thing where this company, I think, I don't know the history 100%, but basically this company would map these interesting dirt road routes through states. So there's a Utah BDR, there's a California BDR, there's an Idaho BDR. And so this buddy of mine who I've known since basically high school, him and a few of his friends, and he'd invite me. And when I was free, I would go and we would camp along these backcountry discovery routes. And I would take my DRZ 400 and we'd throw on all our camping equipment, and 2 or 3 days of just camping with the boys. And we'd ride motorcycles through super pretty places. And sometimes you got into really tough roads. Sometimes you were on just cruisers. Sometimes you got on the highway for a little bit. And that was always a super fun social experience. But that wasn't anybody else that I was meeting new for the first time.
Right,
it's just my buddy from high school, who is a really cool guy. But, I wasn't meeting new people. I already knew he was cool. He brought cool friends, I guess.
Would you say that on average, like the people that do choose to ride adventure touring bikes, would they be more of that recluse, like they're out to ride for themselves more than?
That's a good question.
Because I think like with cruisers and tours, it's like it's a big thing about being a community. Yeah,
that's a really good point. I've seen other adventure riders out and about just when I'm taking these commutes to work, and most of the time they're by themselves, I guess.
I think I've never seen more than like 2 or 3 together.
You know what's funny is sometimes I'll see somebody on like a BMW 1250 GS with a Harley rider. I'm like, how do those guys know each other? That's cool. I mean, way to resist the barriers. Don't let the man keep you down.
Well, that's funny you say that, because I think that's often what people probably think when they see me riding with my sister-in-law, because she has a R3, Yamaha R3. Yeah. So it's like the sport bike. Yeah. And then I'm on my big Harley tour bike, So I'm sure that's probably a similar thing. Or when I see a group of riders and it's like all Harleys and then like some other bike. I don't know. It's just
like, what's with that guy?
Guess he just couldn't afford it. Couldn't afford the cool. If he could afford it, he'd be on it.
That is interesting, right? I mean, we're all on 2 wheels, right? But that's kind of funny. That's where our mind goes. Here's a question for you. This is something I've had to think about recently. So I've got twin 16-year-olds, and she came to me the other day and said, "Hey, Dad, I want to ride motorcycles." And I'm just wondering, what would you think, say your daughter came up to you and said, "I want to ride motorcycles"? 1, what would you think? 2, what bike would you pick for her?
Good question. I feel like I would immediately think about all the people who are going to tell me I'm an idiot for saying yes.
I know, right? It's dangerous.
Well, like I every time I post a picture of my daughter just sitting on my bike, my wife's aunt will comment on Facebook or Instagram, be like, "Are you crazy? Like, get her off that." I'm like, "We're not even moving."
Yeah, you're like, "I'm a little bit crazy."
I'm on a motorcycle. And what's funny is she has a son that I need to have him on the podcast. I need to reach out to him, but he has, I don't know what brand it is. It might be a Triumph, but I think it actually is some off-brand Russian bike. But it's got sidecar.
Oh yeah,
and
Ural maybe.
Yeah,
I think that's the brand.
I think you're right. Yeah,
Russian sidecars.
And
it's got a boxer engine.
Yeah, and he's got his dog that will ride in the sidecar with him. And I don't know. I'm sure she's not. Yeah, I'm sure she's not super thrilled about him riding motorcycles either. Yeah. But I'm sure there'd be a lot of naysayers.
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to think of people. I feel like maybe 1 or 2 people I grew up with would ride motorcycles to school and stuff. So I think that if I were to agree to something like that, say they were 16 or 17, and I would be very strict on, this is where you're allowed to go with it. And these are the people you're allowed to ride with. Yeah. Like if you're, if it was, for example, like where I grew up, I don't know, 5-10 minutes from my high school. And it'd be like,
good way to get to school.
And it's like a straight road almost the entire way. And it's cheaper than a car. And obviously you're right. You're wearing a helmet. You're going to wear all the gear, whether you like it or not. And so I that's a question I'm interested to see what my wife would think.
That's a different conversation.
I bet she'd be pretty supportive, but we'll see.
You got to teach your kids to, safe. The world's a dangerous place. And so if you can teach them through the metaphor of learning to ride a motorcycle safely, I'm fully supporting her doing it. But just like you said, I'm like, well, here's how you do it safely. And, I recommend you take this safety course. I guess it's been so long since I've gotten a motorcycle license.
I need to take a course. I didn't even take one when I got mine.
Yeah. Oh,
because I'd just been riding all growing up on dirt bikes.
Passed the test, no problem.
Yeah. Well, and I had the friends that lent me their bike and that DR650, and I just showed up and took the test.
The Army will pay for your course. So that's how I took a motorcycle safety course. And I've been riding for a while. When I took this course, I learned so much.
Oh, I believe it.
Like it kind of blew my mind. I'm like, how did I not know this? I've been riding 15 years, dirt bikes, road bikes, whatever. And then just having this professional who it's his job to teach people to ride safely. It blew my mind how much I didn't know about riding motorcycle safety.
Yeah, I think I really need to buckle down. Randy, the guy, I had him on a couple weeks ago, maybe a month or two. But he's one of their coaches at Harley Davidson, and then he teaches at Slick. And I'm like, I really ought to take one of his classes. I may have taken it
from him. That sounds familiar. What's his last name?
That's a good question.
We'll have to look it up. Thanks, Randy. You did a great job.
He rides a Dyna, an orange Dyna. So I don't know, maybe.
God, this was a while ago. So
okay.
I don't know. But he's an older guy.
No, not super old.
Must be somebody else then.
Mid to late 30s.
Yeah, no, different guy that I took it from. I've been thinking about doing one of the racing schools.
Oh, really?
I think that'd be really fun and good way to get some more skills.
Do you think you'd rent a different bike, or would you want to try and do it with your Ducati?
I've heard of people doing it with the Multistrada. It's basically their race engine in their Panigale that they put in an adventure bike. So I've heard of people doing it, but it'd be cool as
I guess you could just switch the tires out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these are basically on-road tires. They're not knobbies or anything. The problem is it's got a 19-inch wheel, and that rotational mass is not as agile as a 17-inch wheel. So it'd be cool to get like a legit track bike, a race bike. Like Aprilia makes this RS660. That's super lightweight, and it'd be super interesting to try that out on track.
Yeah, there's a couple sport bikes I'd like to try.
Yeah.
It was funny. I think
you started out on an MT-07, right?
Yeah,
so
the
you know
FC.
How it is.
Yeah.
It's a big difference.
Or the FC-09. But I think I made a comment the other day to my wife about having another sport bike. She's like, "You're not going to have another sport bike." I'm like, "Why?" She's like, "I don't want you to have another sport bike. I like the one you have."
That's fair because sports bikes make you want to ride fast.
Yes,
which is more dangerous.
Yeah, though I think if I had like a limitless budget and I could get a bike of each, I'd probably get, obviously a newer road glide or street glide. I'd get either something like what you have or like the BMW. What is it? The 1250 GS?
1250. Their new one's the 1300 GS.
I don't know if I'd want something that big. Yeah. And then
that Tenere T7 or that Yamaha T7. That's a cool bike.
Well, I would want for like a sport bike, I'm torn between the the Honda
something
I think it's like the CBR 1000R.
Oh yeah.
RRR. It's like 3 R's. I'm like, how many R's do you need? The CBR 1000R. Yeah. So I think that one looks really. I think they call it the Firebolt or something like.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sounds amazing.
Haven't done a lot of research into it. Obviously,
it's fun to think about that.
And then I think they're the H2. I think by Kawasaki.
Yeah, Kawasaki with the supercharger.
Is that is the H2 the one with the fairing, and then they have a different one? I can't remember. Because they have like a naked
H2
version.
is like the platform, and then they have other letters that designate naked versus race, and they have like a touring version too.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
Bags that come with it.
Well, the reason I like that one is it has like almost these fangs coming off the front of the fairing. I don't know if they actually help with like.
It'd be cool to hear that supercharger.
supercharger.
You twist your wrist and a little supercharger whine to go with your exhaust note. That'd be something.
There's a guy that comes to the Peach Days motorcycle show with his naked version of that H2. And he's like revving it up like crazy as he comes in.
Dude, so I've, I am not an example of responsible spending. And I bought like some fast cars. So I bought this Porsche 911 996 turbo convertible. And I mean, people that know cars, that's an insanely fast car. And it was used, it's like, 15 years old, but it cost me a lot of money. And this Ducati has better power to weight and better 0 to 60 times than that insanely expensive Porsche. And it's crazy to me how much power you can buy for not much money.
Well, yeah, I mean, those leader bike, sport bikes, like Honda, Kawasaki, Suzuki, like the Hayabusa and the H2, I mean, I think they're like tops 15, 16 grand.
I bought that used like Hayabusa for $6,000.
What year was it?
It was first gen. God, somebody's gonna get mad at me for not knowing. In 08 maybe.
Okay.
It was a first gen Hayabusa, and the guy sold it for $6,000, and I took it to its top speed almost, which is insane. I don't hate the lines on the Hayabusa. They're not my favorite. It's an acquired taste.
But I do love the kanji on the side of the bike.
Yeah.
I think that looks fire.
Is that what the script is called?
Yeah, the Japanese script is the lettering or whatever characters are called kanji, and so
it's an interesting looking bike. It was so stable at speed. Like the reason I took it that fast is I'm like it's still stable. It still doesn't feel like it's.
Did you feel like you're gonna get
wobble
blown right off the back of it?
If I had to like push myself against the gas tank, because if I allowed any air to come under my chest, it would want to tear me up. It would slow down immediately. So I had to squeeze myself to the gas tank. Don't do this at home.
Have you ever seen? I think it's just like a one-off bike, but it's a jet propelled bike.
That sounds amazing. Of course, somebody made that.
And you literally can't drive it without they have like a camera on the front of it and a screen so that you can look down. You have to have your head down when you're going top speed.
That sounds right. That sounds like something humans would do.
And so you got this camera right in front of you as you're looking down so that you can see where you're going. I'm like, oh my gosh.
It makes me want to go out and see what they do at Bonneville in person. I bet that's wild.
That'd be so cool.
That would be pretty wild. Yeah. Well, that's what's cool is there's so many different places you can go in motorcycling. You can go out to Bonneville and set speed records. You can set lap times. You can just, wear your leather vest and look super cool on your Harley. Or you can be a dentist. Or you can be a dentist with a BMW 1300 or a doctor like me. There's just so many different places that you can emphasize with motorcycles. It's an incredible hobby. It's super fun.
One thing I wanted to talk about with you is we've touched on it a little bit here and there, but your gear.
Yeah.
So what gear do you have? What kind of made you get that? What things have you experimented with?
Just as much safety gear as I can buy. I mean, it is expensive to be sick and not be able to go to work, to get injured. And so there's that factor. Fortunately, in the Army, we have great health insurance. But if you don't have health insurance and you just have to go to the ER once, then that's your you could buy everything at the Revzilla store, safety gear-wise, and you wouldn't even cover your ER bill. So I would invest in safety gear. I think they're making incredible airbag vests now that, they're $800, $1,000, but still, just like I said.
I wonder how well those work.
Yeah, I've never had to use mine.
So you do have one?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had the tethered one, and I think it's called Helite is the company, where it's a cord that ties to your motorcycle. I've had that one for a few years, and I just bought one of the vests that it's this computer algorithm. It monitors if you're getting in a crash. Those are supposed to be better and go off sooner, and they're more expensive. But God, like I said, it cost me. I think I got the one that's like $400, and then you have to pay a $20 a month subscription, which, I get why people don't like that, but there's other ones where there's no subscription, but it's $800. So, but it's worth it. It's worth it if I don't break my clavicle when I fall or just not getting road rash.
Is that something do you feel like any interference while you're riding? Is it pretty bulky? Like I've never even tried one of those.
With the Helite, it was a little uncomfortable and just kind of giant on me.
Was that the tethered one?
That's the tethered one.
Okay.
With this one, no. It's just like another piece of protective gear. I also have an Aerostitch one-piece suit, the dorky looking thing with the high vis sleeves. But, if I avoid getting road rash that requires me to be hospitalized, then it was totally worth it. Right. And I've got a full face helmet, I've got riding gloves, I got riding boots. I've got a couple different boots, one that's like a casual pair. I want to get another pair of, not full knee or calf height, motocross boots, but a little more coverage than my casual motorcycle sneakers.
Okay, so they're more like a sneaker style.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some adventure bike riders that they've kind of got like a mid-calf or like an ankle high.
Kind of like our army boots are.
Yeah.
That's what my next purchase probably will be.
That's what you're looking for?
I think so. Just to make it a little more comfortable while I'm walking in to get a sandwich at the gas station.
Are they so are they like really thick leathers, or are they like actually armored, or just kind of a bit of both depending on what you're looking for?
So the number one thing I'd recommend people get is a helmet, and wear your helmet, because this is the really important stuff. This is what controls your consciousness, your ability to speak, form words, be a human. So wear a helmet. Almost all the time. 99% of the time I wear my helmet. The other thing that I'd recommend to all the time have is gloves, like actual motorcycle gloves with the padding on the hands and like the reinforcement. Because if you slide, you want to tear up your hands, because most people use their hands to work.
Right.
So if you, abrade off a finger, then you can't work for months. That's a big deal. And
that thing's not coming back.
Yeah. Wear gloves. So helmet and gloves. And then next thing would be a jacket. And then pants. I guess I don't know. After helmet and gloves, maybe boots, because the highest frequency, especially for dirt riding, the least likely, but most important to the helmet for head injuries. The most likely, but maybe least important is leg injuries. But off-road, people dropping bikes on their legs and causing fractures of the legs, pretty common. I guess I don't know on-road how much that happens, but... Yeah, here's a funny story. Hopefully I don't get in trouble for telling this. Well, I won't. So I'm driving down Salt Lake. I think I was in med school, driving down to Salt Lake on some road, and there's this accident up ahead. People are like, traffic's backed up. I've got all my kids in the car, and the ambulance hasn't gotten there yet. I usually don't stop if there's an ambulance, because our EMS professionals are super competent, and they don't need some random doctor stopping and telling them what to do.
I'm a doctor.
Yeah, how obnoxious is that? But no ambulance was there, so I'm like, I better stop. So I stop and I get out. Unfortunately, there was people there that had already kind of stabilized this patient, but it was a motorcycle rider who must have got clipped by a car and had a lower leg amputation, completely lost his leg below the knee. And somebody had put a tourniquet on, which, is fine. And somebody was, helping him stay cool in the sun and keep him from going into shock. And I was like, oh, how can I be helpful? I'm a doctor and everything, but these guys got it covered. And I see his leg over there. I'm like, oh, I'll go get his leg and I'll put it by him so he doesn't get lost.
People are like, what are you doing?
I was like, I'm bringing the guy's leg. And then...
Anybody got an ice cooler?
He was kind of in shock, and he kept asking, like, am I okay? Am I okay? And nobody would tell him that his leg was amputated. And we were just like, yeah, man, you'll be great. It's going to be fine.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think he recognized.
At what point can you like reattach
legs? I don't think,
because it was
below the knee
digits
amputation.
are pretty easy, aren't they?
Yeah, digits relatively easily, as long as it's a clean separation. I have heard of hand transplants. I'm sure somebody's tried legs, but I don't know any. I haven't read any papers or anything about leg reattachments. But probably not going to happen for this guy. But that was my contribution to him, was to give him his leg. And if he had been wearing full riding boots like I ride in, he probably would have been fine. So I'd wear these sneakers at least have a firmer sole and heel protection, so you can't crush your foot if the motorcycle lands on it. It doesn't do anything for your upper leg, but ankle support's big because you can invert your ankle and cause a lot of damage there. So at some point in there, after a helmet and gloves, I would get a jacket and some kind of foot protection afterwards.
Yeah, because recently, before I was just kind of riding with cowboy boots.
Yeah.
Or...
they're better than flip-flops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. but and maybe better than tennis shoes because like the leather is a little more resistant.
More abrasion resistance.
Recently, I've been riding with I think they're Ariat, like they're almost that moccasin style, but they're a work boot. So they have carbon. They have a carbon fiber toe and a like a nail proof plate or whatever. And I don't think the heel is protected, but essentially, like, I mean, that's not going to grind my toes off because that carbon fiber is going to last a lot longer.
It's a step up for sure. Unless it's a motorcycle boot, it doesn't have the crush protection that you're after. So all the motorcycle specific brands, they make the bottom part, the last out of something that doesn't crush, and you get heel protection, and the ankle is less likely to flex weird where it'll break. So if you're looking for boots for your motorcycle, then get something that's a motorcycle brand off of Revit or Cycle City or wherever you go shop. And Harley Davidson will say something.
Yeah, they've got some, and I don't think very many of them are like armored. I think a lot of them they're just like kind of a heavy leather. Yeah. But I don't think there's many of them that go very high that have like actual ankle protection or like strengthening. They're not. They're loose if they go past. I don't know. I just don't feel like they have the same style of protection as ones like that you would have for.
But you're not on dirt where you're dropping the bike on your leg all the time, So your risk versus reward. It's lower on the list than helmet and gloves for sure.
Right. Yeah.
But if you can, get everything and an airbag vest and wear it all the time, or 99% of the time.
And then you mentioned you have a lot of heated gear. What brands have you stuck to? Anything that you've tried and didn't like, or?
Don't consider me a gear expert, but I've liked Gerbig, something like that. I don't know how to pronounce it. And they all plug into the battery because I go on longer rides than they make some that have their own battery power attached to the clothing. And they last, I've never bought any, but according to the website, they last 6 hours or whatever. Well, sometimes I'm on the road for a couple days and I want to be charging up batteries. So I've always gotten the stuff that plugs directly into the bike. And they are amazing. Like I've gone on trips in March where I've gone over high mountain passes and it gets down to 10 degrees and I'm still sitting there super comfortable.
Is that like an adjustable heat?
Yeah, you can adjust it. They've got Gerbig, I think is how you say it. They've got this little knob that you can put on your waist and you can turn them up, turn them down. You can turn your gloves to a different temperature than your pants.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty slick. But then just having heated grips and heated seat make a big difference too.
So when you have like the gloves and the jacket or the pants, do they all just kind of hook together at the seams or wherever they're fitting together?
It's a whole thing.
Like you don't have like 6 different cables going to your battery, do you?
No, the gloves will hook into the jacket, which hooks into the controller. You can run the gloves separate from the jacket if you buy certain things. Again, I'm not an expert. But typically what I'll do is have the gloves and the jacket run the same. And then that works 90% of the time. If it's really cold, I'll bring my pants. But, before I didn't have a heated seat, so maybe I won't need the pants as much.
Oh, and this one does?
Yeah, this one has a heated seat. So my legs hardly ever get cold. They just, I've never gotten cold legs. But my top and my hands. The hands are super important to keep warm because that's your controls, right?
Yeah.
If your hands get cold, you're like, I can't work the clutch or the brake.
Yeah, like my bike has heated grips, which help a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But I also feel like the outside of my hand starts to get cold. Like even though the inside is really warm, like the outside is like freezing. So I have seen some that have kind of like a grip deflector. Yeah. And I was like, those might be nice during colder months.
A lot of adventure bikes will have the bark busters. I'm not sure if that's what they're called, but they're kind of a plastic piece to go around your hand in case you're riding past trees. It hits
smash that.
It hits the plastic piece instead of your hand, but it blocks the wind really well too. So if you just have heated grips in that, I haven't had to put on my heated gloves for a while since doing heated grips in those bark busters. They're super small, and if you have a little bit of luggage, just keep them in your luggage from, basically September on, and when it gets too cold, bust them out.
So are those heated gear, are they water resistant, or do you have to put like kind of a rain gear on top of them?
I don't put on rain gear. I just let them get wet. And sometimes I'll put like medical gloves underneath just to keep my hands dry, and then stick them in the heated gloves, and then just let the glove get wet. But I'm sure there's better ways to do it than what I've done. But
yeah, because I think that's kind of one of the next things. I don't know if I'll get heated gear per se, but I think I would like some rain gear.
Yeah.
Just like absolute worst case scenario, I'm out already and it starts downpouring or something. I'd rather stay dry in the long run than
Before I had heated gear, I bought rain gear, and I would take that and I'd put it on, and it blocks the wind really well because that's where you get cold mostly.
Yeah,
right?
It's just taking away all that body heat.
Yeah, so if you have just a nice insulated layer and then rain gear, you block all that wind. You get a lot warmer, and then just your hands. You just got to worry about your hands. But with heated grips, that usually works really well down to like 40 degrees. You get below 40 degrees, you probably want heated gloves.
So I have a really funny story about my heated grips, and I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but I got them. So when I bought the bike, it had heated grips, but they were like the stock, just straight rubber grip, and the rubber was starting to peel and fall apart, and so I was like, okay, I want to get some new grips. Well, I got these new Kahuna Collection Harley Davidson grips. They're really nice, really flashy.
Yeah,
got them put on, and it was like, oh boy, what was it, like January, February? That year was just super dry. And so me and my friend Gary, we were riding quite a bit, even though it was really cold.
Yeah.
And we go out riding, heading north on 89, and I'm like, man, it must be super duper cold.
Yeah.
Because my hands are still cold.
And
like I'm just freezing, cold, and we finally pull over. And I take my glove off and I touch the heated grip, and it's ice cold. I'm like,
this isn't working.
Gary, these are not working.
Oh man.
And so I throw my gloves back on. We ride back to Tucker Speed, and they crack them open, and they're like, oh, we got them on. We didn't connect these two pieces together. I was like, oh,
that's funny.
but
well, it just shows you how big of a difference it makes, right?
Oh yeah.
And it's a safety thing, because if you can't work your controls, you probably shouldn't be riding.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that heated stuff. It really extends your season quite a bit. Now I'm working in this hospital in Arizona, and so I'm hopeful that I can ride down there year round.
That's gonna be hot.
Yeah, well, in the summer. Well, that's the problem with all the gear is I don't know a good way to stay cool. I haven't figured that out. If anybody's got suggestions, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, me too.
Wear the safety gear and stay cool. Even the mesh jackets. It's still a jacket, and it's 100 degrees.
There's a few things I have seen. I know that there are some cooled seats, which are essentially just fan-powered seats, I believe. I don't think there's anything more advanced than fans for those, but I have seen, I don't know how well they work. I need it, but it's basically like a small micro fan.
Oh, really?
That's shaped to kind of follow the edge of your wrist, and so it sticks inside of the edge where your sleeve comes to the end, and it kind of blows air into the jacket. So I don't know how well those work.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I just tell myself if I wanted to be comfortable all the time, I would have kept the Toyota Sienna. Then just deal with it.
Yeah. I know that there's a lot of like kind of swamp cooler effect gear, like something you douse in water and then you wear it until it dries out.
I've seen stuff like that. And you can get like ice and put it in your bandana and put that on your neck. So one of the other things I do is ultra running. Then you can get these little things that go on your wrist, and it basically holds an ice cube on your radial artery, and just your artery passing that ice cools you down a lot, I hear. I haven't tried it. I don't know.
Interesting.
I'd be interested to give it a shot.
Yeah, you'll have to let us know how it works.
Yeah. I guess you could put it against any artery. I don't know. You could put like ice in your crotch.
Just like
see how
stick
that goes.
a 7-pound bag of ice right on the seat and just sit down on it.
No,
it'd probably work really well.
We are innovating right now. Let's design something.
Let's do it. I mean, I'm sure there's some sort of like we'd make like
ice
a hollow seat. I don't know about like one of those cooling packs you put in your lunchbox or whatever, the malleable
ice
ones.
Jock strap. That's patented here first.
Hey, you'd be the man to do it, right? Oh man, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I feel like there's definitely a lot of solutions.
Just drive faster, and then the wind cools you down.
Exactly.
More.
Like, sorry, officer, I was getting hot. I had to.
Right. I was overheating.
No, but I think that there are a ton of options when it comes to keeping you warm, but when it comes to keeping you cold, there's not as much that you can do about
definitely
it.
Less. I don't know. Stop and take breaks, I guess. I don't know. More reason.
I think that's super important. I think that's something that people don't think about. They're like, hey, I just got to get to my location. I don't want to stop or whatever.
It's hard to stay hydrated enough. You know, one thing that I would recommend is a tank bag. Ooh. And you can put stuff in your tank bag. And if you have a flip up helmet, you could like drink and stay hydrated because your drink's right there in your tank bag.
Yeah, I've
never done it.
I have these saddlebag. Yeah. Well, so with the with the tour bike Harley Davidsons, they have the bar that kind of comes out in front of the saddlebags, the hard saddlebags. And I have these bags essentially that strap onto the front of those. And they do have like a water bottle pouch. And so I'm sure that if I was wearing that modular helmet, I could
do stuff.
I would just probably want to get something that actually keeps, some more insulated.
Yeah.
Because I think the bottles that it came with are like those, Gatorade plastic bottle, essentially.
Right.
Spray bottle.
When I bought that Victory Vision, it had a cup holder attached to the handlebars. So people must do it. I took it off immediately, but it was on there, like it had been used. So
I think they look a little goofy, but if I was like going long distance and I needed a drink, I think I would probably put one on just for that. Because I don't keep those ones on down low because I think they look kind of goofy. But if I was going on a longer trip, I'd probably throw them on.
I've seen tank bags with like those Camelback hoses with a pouch.
Oh, really?
Or like some adventure guys will have a Camelback on their back and drink out of it as they go. So I've seen stuff. But yeah, you're right. Stay hydrated.
Yeah, I wonder, I don't know, because a lot of those Camelbacks are not super insulated, so they don't keep that water warm.
You just gotta cool. Drink warm water. It's better than not drinking water.
That's true, but people are like, well, it's not super great for you to drink ice cold water. I'm like,
it's pretty great.
I was like,
it tastes amazing.
I don't like drinking warm water. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Something you could flavor it, and that makes it a little bit better. But you're right; it's not as nice as ice water.
No, I don't feel like it cools me down either. I'm like,
stop more at the gas station and get ice water, I guess. So.
About how often do you think you're stopping on your trips?
Dude, that's the biggest problem with this Ducati. The gas mileage is horrible.
Oh, really?
It's like. If I'm going fast, it's like 25 miles to the gallon.
That's it.
I know, it's ridiculous.
I would not have expected that because those adventure bikes seem to go a long ways.
Well, then this Ducati that's probably why they're not selling, is because people want a lot of range on their adventure bikes. That's probably why they're such a great deal.
What's the tank size on those?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Supposedly you can get 200 miles, but like I said, if I'm going fast, I got to stop every 120 miles. Oh, but I mean, just carry gas. I'll tell you what you can't carry is more horsepower, but I can carry more gas.
Fuel.
So
that's one thing I want to get. Zach mentioned it, I think, on our last week's episode, but he's got these, I think they're 1 gallon gas tanks.
Oh yeah.
And they fit.
Rotapax is a brand name that manufactures.
I'm not sure what brand his are, but with the saddlebags, they kind of have that angle on the back, and so it fits right into that angle. It's storage space you're probably not going to use as efficiently.
Yeah,
and so it fits right into that, and then it squares up the bottom of your bag.
Yeah, running out of gas sucks. There's a lot of adventure riders will have this gas bag, and it's basically there's this old company called Dromedary Bags that's made for backpackers, and it's just a bladder that you put gas in. It's designed to put gas in, and you can strap it anywhere on your bike. That's what I have, and I just put it on my bike, and it's 2 gallons extra. And I try not to ever use it. It's just the reserve,
Right, worst case scenario.
It's nice to have.
That is one question I did want to ask you that got brought up on last week's episode. Our friend Sean, he asked, like, what would you do if you were out in the middle of nowhere and something bad happened to your bike?
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do?
You're
like, I mean, you don't have service on your phone potentially, or you don't have more fuel, or heaven forbid something like mechanically it happens. Like, is that something that you have accounted for with some of your riding?
We were just talking about all the safety gear you get, but you're right. Communications, especially if you're out adventure riding, is a big deal. Fortunately, these days, within the last 10 years, there's satellite messengers. So Garmin InReach is probably the most popular one I'm aware of, but there's other ones. You can buy yourself a Garmin InReach and carry it with you all the time. If you've ever seen people with this dorky little thing right here with the orange antenna, that's usually what those are.
Oh, okay.
They mount it to their body, so if they crash, it's still on their body. They can activate emergency response wherever they have satellite signal. So I have one of those, and I carry it around.
So you think if you had like a busted bike, you'd have to just call out for help?
If I had a busted bike, I wouldn't call for help. I'd try to walk to the closest road and try to hitch a ride. I don't want to, I want to be self-sufficient as possible, and I can walk a long ways. So,
as long as you have water.
Yeah, as long as you have water. I guess if you didn't, you got to be smart. You can't plan for every scenario, right? But you can have a general plan, and if you have options for communication, then you're better off if you didn't have options. And just relying on your cell phone is probably not the best idea where we live. You get up in the mountains or out in the desert.
Just gone.
Yeah, you got no cell reception. But those InReach messengers are awesome. I've used it a lot. I've had it for 5 years probably, and it's amazing. It's super handy. Just I can text my wife, hey, I'll be late, or text the buddy who also has it, hey, meet me here X time. It's pretty handy. It's worth getting.
So with that idea of something breaking down while you're on the road, how are dealerships or mechanics, like are there quite a few that will work on Ducatis that are certified?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Because that's one thing that's really nice about Harley Davidson is they're like all over the place. So if you have an issue, you can take it in. And I think the other big metric brands are pretty good. There's quite a few dealers. Just here in Utah, we got a crap ton of young power sports.
Yeah, there's a lot of KTM dealers around.
They've kind of taken over.
Yeah.
So you can get probably Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, Kawasaki parts, or at least they're associated. But I don't feel like I see like Ducati or Aprilia or BMW even.
I mean, there's one in Salt Lake, there's one in Vegas, and one in Denver. And that's probably it until you hit California or somewhere east of the Mississippi. So I think that's a lot of empty space. I mean, one time, so that old BMW, I had to break down in the middle of Colorado once, like in the middle of Colorado. And I had to hitchhike to somewhere, rent a U-Haul,
go get your
load up my bike, drive my bike home in the U-Haul. And it cost me, $1,000 to rent this U-Haul because it's drop of the hat. I need a U-Haul. And so, you got a good point.
It's better than leaving your $18,000 motorcycle out in the desert.
Well, this BMW was 20 years old and it was $4,000. Maybe I should have left it. I don't know. But yeah, you got a good point. And hopefully you don't. So that's one reason I was excited to buy a new bike. I was like, this thing's not going to have. It was this BMW had an alternator. It doesn't even have a stator. It has an alternator that exploded, and that's why it stranded me. So I'm like, this Ducati's not going to have a catastrophic failure, hopefully, because it's a relatively new bike. So, but yeah, I don't know. You got a good point. I'll just drive faster.
I just drive faster.
I mean, everywhere can fix a tire. That's no big deal. Any motorcycle shops can do that, and that's going to be most often what happens. They can probably fix your chain. I carry a lot of the stuff with me. I could fix my own chain if I had a failure of the chain. So I can repair my own tire punctures. I'm trying to think of what else I carry. Just the basic toolkits. So if something loosens, I can tighten it. But take it to a mechanic and give them a once over at the first of the season. That's probably the best advice.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely food for thought because, like you said, there's not. Other than giving it its regular maintenance and treating it, going safely and whatever, there's not a whole lot you can do about a worst case scenario.
I got a story about a T7.
Oh,
me and my buddy were on this ride down in Moab, and one of our friends was on a T7, and a rock came up through I think he had bought an aftermarket skid plate, and the rock still punctured his skid plate and his oil pan.
Oh, man.
And we had to tow that T7 back out on this super rough road somewhere in Moab. And so we tied it to another bike, and one of our really good riders towed it, and one of our next best rider rode it.
Oh,
and it was arduous.
I believe it. Yeah.
But, we had 6 dudes. And that's part of the adventure of it is we had to recover this bike. So it's still fun.
And Moab must be like the place where bad things happen.
I'm sure.
I don't know about that for sure, but I have some friends that they did a cross country tour.
Oh yeah.
And I would love to have their brothers. I'd love to have them on, but one lives in Florida and one lives in Washington or Oregon, but they went from Oregon or Washington all the way down through Utah and then all the way across over to Florida. And when they were in Utah, they stopped. I believe it was Moab, but they were on a trail, and same thing happened. Just went right through the oil pan, and they were stuck there for a while and I think they were on the what is it? The Tiger. Who makes the Tiger? Triumph. Yeah, they were on Triumph Tigers.
Yeah,
and they were stuck there for like a couple days.
Wow, really?
Because they just had to wait for parts.
That's wild. Well, at least it sounds like they made it to town.
Oh yeah, least, they got it out. They got it fixed and got out of there, but
they weren't stuck in the wilderness for days.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, there's no Triumph dealer in Moab.
I don't think they were very far out on the thing, but they were a little stuck.
Well, that's part of the adventure of it, right? I mean, you're right. You don't know when you're going to break down or what's going to happen, but that's kind of why we go, is to just see. Have you been on a lot of southern Utah roads?
No, most of my riding is like Salt Lake and up.
Dude,
like I've done some Idaho. I've done some. I don't know. I think I might have crossed over into Wyoming, but
let me tell you where you got to go. And I think one of your guys mentioned this road, but it's the one between Boulder and Escalante, Highway 12, I think. And I forget what they call the paved section. One's Hell's Backbone and one's Hog's Back. One's the dirt road section, one's the paved section. But it's basically you go above Calf Creek Falls and it drops off on both sides and you're on the pavement and it's just an incredible road. So if you ever have the chance, so Boulder, Utah and Escalante.
Okay. Is that like central or south?
Yeah, central. Okay. Central-ish. It's north of Lake Powell, 50 miles. Escalante is. Do check out that road. That should be your first trip. Connect some roads down there and hit that section because it's amazing. It's really, really gorgeous. Make that your first trip down.
That sounds fun.
Give me a call. I'll come with you.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, I'll show it to you.
We'll have to go on a ride or two. I know you like going out on your own, but I'd love to go out and ride.
No, I would jump at the opportunity to be more social on my motorcycle. Well, I listened to your podcast about the pillion riders, all your spouses on the back. I'd love to get my wife on the bike again. And
does she not ride with you as much with these adventure style bikes?
Not since I sold that Victory Vision. It's just that Vision was so comfortable. She really liked it.
Maybe it's time you get that second bike, that Harley.
Yeah. I'm looking at KSL every day, looking at used bikes. It's my gosh. It's a real disease, man.
Disease, keyword disease. My wife's like, "Why are you looking at a bike? Are you trying to buy one?"
It's
no, I'm just looking.
Yeah.
Well, why are you looking?
Bikes are amazing.
Why not?
Because it makes me feel good inside.
You get me.
One of the things my wife keeps telling me, because this Norden didn't have a backrest for her, she's like, I got to have a backrest. And so that's one of the first things I bought was this backrest. And some people put a top box on there, but weight is everything on a motorcycle. Those top boxes are heavier. I like the soft luggage. And you're
putting that center of balance so high.
Yeah. I like soft luggage. I like duffel bags that I tie down. So this is just like, what do they call it? Like a sissy bar or something?
Yeah.
So it's basically a backrest. That it's all it is a backrest. And so that was one of our first purchases. So we got to try it out. So when you come down, we'll try out the backrest.
There you go. Well, aren't the bags that are on your bike, aren't they hard shell?
Yeah, they are. I really like.
You'll take off?
Yeah, maybe. I really like this rackless system that Moscow Moto makes, and there's a few other companies that make it, but Moscow Moto is probably the luxury version of it, and it's just way lighter. It's way lighter, and it fits really close into the bike. It's kind of a hassle to pack when opposed to hard luggage. I've got hard luggage on it right now because it came with the bike. And if I'm just on the road, it's just easier to have the hard luggage to take into the hotel and stuff.
They pop off, though?
Yeah, they pop off, and I can take them inside. But I don't have a top box. I just put a waterproof duffel bag that I strap down because it's lighter. Because weight is everything. So I don't like those top boxes. I think dentists put them on to look cool.
Gotta get those really shiny, heavy ones.
Yeah, probably.
No, I do like... I mean, obviously, my wife really likes the Tour Pack because it's got the seat on it, and it's, like you said, kind of like a sofa-esque.
Yeah.
But when she's not on there, I like rip that thing off immediately unless I really need it.
Me too.
But we're gonna go on this trip to Bear Lake with a bunch of friends.
Oh yeah.
This coming weekend,
Nice.
and so I'm trying to decide. It depends on how much we end up bringing, because I am gonna be bringing all this recording equipment. We're gonna do maybe an episode or two while we're up there.
Yeah.
And then obviously we gotta have our clothes and whatever charging.
Hair dryer stuff.
No, we're not a hair dryer people. I used to be, but I try to.
Yeah, you've simplified.
I've simplified. Yes, I used to care.
You look amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. I used to care a little way too much about how my hair looked, and that's when I used a hair dryer. But now I'm just like over it.
Nice.
But we do have these like soft. It's almost like a duffel bag-esque looking thing, and it's built to strap on top of the tour pack.
Yeah.
I'm just a little nervous on how well that will do with weight distribution. I mean, the rack itself says like max weight 15, 20 pounds or something like that. Yeah. And so I guess it just kind of depends on how much we end up putting in there, and we got to be careful about that. We don't want it like ripping off the lid or.
I think a lot of people overload their bikes when they. Yeah, I was looking through the owner's manual of this bike, and I can only load 500 pounds of human flesh and gear on this bike.
Oh, really?
Before I'm maxed out. And I'm 200 pounds. I won't tell you how much my wife weighs, but
that's top secret.
That's not a lot of weight, you know?
Well,
you can't, you shouldn't. You probably can, and it'll be fine, but it's not within the manufacturer's specs to put as much weight as people do.
Well, and then your ride just gets altogether less comfortable, because I mean you're going to be bottoming out your shocks.
Weight is everything,
and you're going to feel every bump.
Even on an 800-pound bike, they're designed to have X amount of weight. And I don't know, does your bike have electronic suspension?
No.
This bike's got electronic suspension. It's the first bike I've ever had that
really
it sets the sag automatically, and then it can stiffen or loosen them depending on how it senses the road conditions. It's amazing.
I know that the Indian tour bikes have that, and you like have
sure
a screen
some
and
Harley
you can.
Does it?
You've got the adaptive ride height with the Pan America. Yeah. I think a lot of them now have like an external like adjustment.
Oh, really?
Because it's stock, it's a lot more affordable.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're already expensive enough, so they're trying to keep costs down.
Yeah.
I think there are some with the new bikes, so because they just had the upgrade on the tour bikes the last couple of years.
I think people don't realize how much suspension matters. Like anytime you get a new dirt bike, I have to, because I'm a bigger dude. They set these bikes up for 150-pound Europeans if you're from KTM, and so I'm a 200-pound American. And you have somebody set up your suspension, and it makes a huge difference.
200 pounds.
Yeah, well, maybe you're a 300-pound American. Even more of a reason to have somebody do your suspension professionally. It makes a big difference.
That's one thing that I'm like, because I'm kind of on the fence when it comes to this bike that I have. Like, do I keep working on it? Do I keep spending money to get it what I want? Or do I just save that money and go towards a new bike? Because there are better suspension packages from like Legends or Olin's or Fox. You know, there's several brands that will make that riding experience a million times better.
Dude, I think bikes are only getting more complicated and less pretty.
Really?
And I think Harley Davidson's is kind of the sweet spot of just like a modern bike with disc brakes, you know, and fuel injection. But it's still, you could keep that bike forever and just keep, upgrading what breaks, and it would look good forever. That's what I think about most Harley Davidsons. I don't know all the brands and stuff, but when I look at a Harley, I'm like, that's a good looking bike. So
they definitely stick to that kind of more classic look.
Yeah, they're pretty, man. Even though this is a Ducati, I don't look back at it and I think, dang, I think it's the nicest looking adventure bike out there, but I don't look back at it and just think, dang, that's a good looking bike.
It does its job.
I appreciate for what it is,
right?
But I'm not blown away by the looks. But I look at a Harley or this Victory Vision that I used to have. I bought it purely off of looks. I saw it on KSL, and there's this picture of this red Victory Vision. You should pull up a picture if you can.
I don't have my Wi-Fi on right now, but I'll try and put one on the video.
Gorgeous. It's a gorgeous bike. Maybe the prettiest bagger I've ever looked at.
The
really
thing that
great.
always makes me laugh when it comes to that, when you're doing stuff based on looks, is like you're like, oh, everyone's gonna just adore my bike, and then it's like all these guys, you know, like you just get the other guys that already have the same bike or whatever. Like, oh, that's a nice looking bike.
Well, going back to like what bike I would have my daughter get, I'd probably just have her get one with a low seat height that she thinks looks cool.
I think, because I didn't even answer that part of the question. I think if I had to pick, I need to ride one to really see.
Right.
But the new Honda Rebels.
Yeah.
Because
cool.
They've got every size that you can want. I think it's like 3, 5.
You can get a smaller
9,
engine
11.
for a beginner. Yeah.
And
low
like
seat height.
Yeah. So I think that would be a good learning bike, or even just like an older Rebel or an older Shadow 750. Because I think if you, I mean, I don't know how your daughters are with if they've ridden like dirt bikes or whatnot, but if I wanted my daughter to ride, I'd probably want to start her on dirt bikes so she can learn the essentials, like how to ride, clutching, etc.
Yeah.
And then be like, hey, if you're interested in street riding, then let's take the courses, like you said. And
what do you think of those Groms, Honda Grom?
I think they're kind of funny.
Yeah.
I find it ironic when I think sometimes when I go through Ogden in summer, they have like these, I don't know if you'd even call it like a rally, but like on the weekends, like a bunch of people that ride.
Groms out there riding.
Like you'll see like 50 Groms out on the road. Like they just take over the road.
They are cool looking. I bet they're fun. I've never been on one, but
I was tempted. They just came out. Well, I can't even call it just, but like maybe a year or two ago, they came out with the Honda Navi, which is even smaller.
Doesn't have a clutch. It's like a scooter.
Yeah. And the one thing that I really don't like about it is that it has, the engine isn't where an engine normally is. It's like underneath the seat, and it
it's
just
like a scooter.
Yeah, it just runs the back tire.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be fun for just like silliness sake and affordability. I think they're like
super affordable.
I think they're like $2,000, maybe
wild.
Brand new.
Maybe it's good for a new rider that doesn't want to have to worry about a manual transmission. I don't know.
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm interested, because I've never met somebody that's like, I really want an automatic transmission bike. Yeah. And Honda seems to be
a trend now. Yeah.
Honda seems to be the brand that is I don't know, I feel like they're the only one doing it. They've got their African Twin.
Yeah.
They've got the Rebel 1100 comes with one, and then a couple of their smaller bikes.
BMW just came out with a no clutch.
Really?
It's not like an automatic transmission. I don't know how it works, but
kind of like buttons or
I think
something.
KTM is coming out with something like that. I think I heard. Yeah. You know, here's the thing, and I thought about this when I see people on a trike, you know, they're still riding, you know, and maybe this older person, or for whatever reason, they don't have the balance they used to have. But they're still out there riding on kind of like a motorcycle. So if it keeps people riding on two wheels, and they're like, for whatever reason, they can't use their clutch, but they're still riding, it's just more options for people. Not an option I would pick right now, but let's say something happens in my left hand, I'll sure appreciate that BMW invested some time in automatic transmission.
I just wonder what their sales are like on those. You know,
that's
like
a good question.
Like, is it worth, you know, sending already built automatic bikes to the dealerships? Like, it's not even just an option. It is like, that is the bike.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a good question. It's not for me, I guarantee that. But this Ducati's got a quick shifter.
Oh, okay, I've seen those. Yeah,
it's kind of amazing.
So you don't even pull the clutch in when you're shifting that, right?
You just bump the gear selector.
Sounds way nice.
Well, the gear changes are so fast. Not every quick shifter is as good as this bike's, and it's
stock?
Really good. Yeah, just stock came on the bike. It's incredible. Your acceleration is so much faster because you don't have to pull in the clutch, just let off the gas. You just bump it with your toe, and you're in the next gear.
That's
nice. Really fun, man. Yeah, but you know, it takes away from parts of the riding. You know,
like the feel, the connection to the bike or whatever.
I mean, that's why they're cool. I've got this Toyota Tacoma that's a 97 single cab, and I'll never sell it because it's a manual transmission. It reminds me of when I was in high school, because that's the years that I went to high school. And it's that same kind of thing. It just feels right. I just like it. And it's just, you know, I ride a motorcycle. I have a clutch. I can you know, modulate the clutch to modulate power, and it's just feels like what it's supposed to be. So, yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm glad that we were able to do this. This was a lot of fun. I feel like...
How long did we do?
I think we did an hour and a half.
Dude, wow.
Can you believe it?
That is wild.
How'd you feel?
Yeah, time flew by.
I think that's what's fun
great.
about having people on, especially people that aren't like, I mean, you're not representing a company, you're not representing a brand, but some people will come on and they'll be a little nervous.
Yeah, I was nervous.
And
I did get used to my voice in the headphones.
It takes a second.
Long. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great, man. It's a great conversation.
Yeah, it was a good time. I'm glad
we talking about motorcycles.
Yeah, we'll have to have you on again. Well, I mean, this worked out really well. I had my wife was out of town, and so I was taking care of our daughter and didn't have a lot of time to record anything, and so this worked out perfectly. And maybe we'll have to do it in the future. Yeah,
for sure. I'd love to. I'll let you know how the Ducati, if it broke down or what happened to
Let's
it.
hope not.
See. Yeah, I hope not. Yeah, thanks, man. It's great talking with you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
For sure.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Beehive Biker Podcast, and thank you to Nate for joining us today. If you have any questions for Nate, and we can pass them along, we'll have options for that. Hopefully, we'll put some questions on this week's episode.
Ask an adventure bike rider.
Exactly. Make sure that you're following on Instagram, on any of the podcasting platforms, on YouTube. It really helps. Every subscription and every comment, every like, it really helps the podcast grow. And that's what's great about our community is it's people that really want to be part of it. And so, yeah, let's keep it up.
You got a great thing going. Keep it up.
Thank you so much.
Nice job.